Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you today about something powerful, something every woman needs to understand. It's called self-worth. And I'm going to tell you how a man really feels when he sees you've moved on peacefully. Now, when I say moved on peacefully, I don't mean hiding your tears or pretending you ain't feeling a thing. I mean genuinely finding your joy again, being happy, content, and living your best life without looking back in anger or bitterness. When a man sees that you've moved on peacefully, the first feeling that often hits him is shock, and not the dramatic fall out of his chair kind of shock. It's more subtle, more internal. It's the kind of realization that creeps in slowly, hitting him when he least expects it. See, most men don't actually believe a woman can detach that deeply and still carry herself with grace. He might have thought you were going to fall apart. He might have figured you'd be stuck scrolling his page, trying to make him jealous or keeping tabs on his life. He probably assumed he'd always have some kind of emotional hold on you. That's how the ego works. But then he sees you smiling, glowing, not just surviving, but thriving, and it hits different. Maybe it's at the grocery store. You're not dressed up for him. You're just existing, hair pulled back, wearing confidence like perfume. Maybe it's on social media. He stumbles across a picture of you genuinely happy, not a trace of bitterness in your eyes. That's when the shock sets in. He realizes you didn't pause your life waiting for an apology that might never come. You didn't put yourself on hold while he figured himself out. You kept it moving. And not only that, you did it without a scene, without putting your pain on public display. You processed it, you held your head up, and you let the silence speak for you. There's a quiet strength and peacefulness that most men don't expect. The world tells them that women are emotional, dramatic, always holding on. But when you show up calm, secure, unfazed, that's unsettling in the best way. It makes him pause. It forces him to look at you not as someone who was dependent on him, but as someone who simply loved him and chose to walk away when that love was no longer being honored. That's rare, that's powerful, and that's what shocks him. He starts thinking back, remembering conversations you had, warnings you gave, times you forgave him when he didn't deserve it. He starts piecing it together, realizing that your peace wasn't passive. It was earned. You had to cry behind closed doors. You had to talk yourself out of texting him. You had to relearn what joy looked like on your own. He didn't see that part, and he probably never will. All he sees now is the result, a woman standing tall, not because she's trying to make a point, but because she's finally living in alignment with her worth. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about showing him what he lost just to feed your ego. It's about growth. And men can feel that even if they don't have the words for it. He might not say anything. He might just watch from a distance. But inside, he knows you leveled up. You found a version of yourself he never had access to because he didn't know how to care for you in that season. That realization, that's where the shock turns into silence. He stops reaching out, not because he doesn't care, but because he realizes that whatever window he once had to be in your life has now closed, and it's not coming back. And here's the truth. Most men don't feel the weight of losing a good woman right away. Not when the breakup is fresh. Not when pride is high. It's later, when life slows down, when he's alone, when he doesn't hear from you anymore. That's when the image of you smiling without him, healing without noise, glowing without bitterness, comes back to haunt him. And that image, that peace, hits harder than any argument ever could. Your peaceful exit becomes the loudest message he never expected to hear. It's not just I'm done, it's I've grown beyond this. That hits differently. That sits in his chest and stays there. So when a man sees that you've moved on peacefully, he's caught off guard. He's not just surprised by your absence, he's surprised by your transformation. Because in his mind, you needed him more than you actually did. And the moment he sees that you're not just okay, you're better, that's when the shock becomes real. That's when he finally understands you were the one and he let you go. Regret doesn't come quick for most men. It creeps in quietly, often when they least expect it. In the beginning, right after the breakup, he may not feel much at all. Maybe there's some relief. Maybe he's out with his boys, posting on social media like he's unbothered. He might even convince himself he made the right choice. But time has a funny way of catching up. As days turn into weeks and weeks into months, that initial high fades. The attention dies down, the distractions don't hit the same, and suddenly he has space to think, and that's when regret starts to set in. It doesn't come because you begged him to come back. It doesn't come because you fought or argued or posted cryptic messages trying to make him feel guilty. It comes because you didn't. You just moved on. Not loud, not messy, just calmly, gracefully. You didn't run after him. You didn't try to compete with whoever came next. You let him go. And now he's sitting there with all that time in silence, realizing what he had and what he lost. He starts remembering the way you loved him, the little things you did that nobody else really noticed, how you checked in on him, how you held him down when things weren't going right in his life, how you encouraged him even when he was too proud to admit he needed help. Maybe he remembers how you looked at him when he walked in the room, or how your energy made home feel like home. He thinks about the way you forgave him more than once, how you gave him chances he didn't even deserve. That kind of love doesn't fade easy, and now it's gone. At first he might try to brush it off. He might scroll past your post or pretend he's not thinking about you. But that regret sits like a knot in his chest. Every time he sees your name, every time someone brings you up, every time he sees you smiling without him, it tightens. That knot reminds him that you were real, that what you gave wasn't replaceable, that he let it slip through his fingers because he didn't know what to do with it at the time. The hardest part for him is knowing that you're not angry anymore. That's the piece that really messes with his mind. If you were mad, yelling, fighting, still trying to make a scene, it would mean you still cared. But peace means acceptance. Peace means you're done. And that's where regret really digs deep. Because now he knows there's no door left open, no lingering hope. He realizes he can't come back to the same version of you. The door didn't just close, it disappeared. He might try to reach out eventually, maybe a hey, just checking in, maybe a reaction to one of your stories, just something to see if you'll respond, to test the waters. And if you do answer, he listens closely, not to what you say, but how you say it. If your tone is cool, calm, respectful, but not emotional, he feels it. If you sound like someone who no longer needs him, who no longer places him at the center of your life, that regret grows even stronger. He starts to realize that no matter what he says, he can't undo the damage. He can't go back in time to treat you better. And that's when the weight of it hits him. He had a good woman and he fumbled. You didn't have to punish him. Life did that. Your growth did that. Your peace did that. Every milestone you hit without him, every time you laugh without looking back, every ounce of healing you did on your own. Those are reminders not just of what he lost, but of who he never got the chance to fully appreciate. Regret in that sense isn't about missing you. It's about realizing he never really saw you until you were gone. He looks at what he has now, or maybe what he doesn't have, and it just doesn't measure up. Maybe he's with someone new, but the connection isn't the same. Maybe she doesn't understand him the way you did. Maybe she doesn't challenge him the way you did. Or maybe he's alone, looking back at the past like it was a dream he didn't realize he was living in. That's the danger of not appreciating love in real time. You wake up one day and it's not there anymore and you can't recreate it. So the regret lingers. It's not loud, it's not always spoken, but it's present in the quiet moments, in the stillness, in the parts of the day where the distractions fade and the truth creeps in. That he had someone who truly cared, someone who loved him despite his flaws, someone who wanted to grow with him, and he let her go. And the most painful part, she's not looking back. She's at peace. There comes a moment when a man who has lost a good woman and watches her move on peacefully begins to feel something deep and unfamiliar. Respect. Not just admiration, not just a quick, she looks good scroll on social media. Real deep, undeniable respect. The kind that grows slowly, the kind that settles in his chest and stays there because now he's seeing something that he didn't fully appreciate before. It's not just remembering how beautiful you were or how kind you were or how much love you gave. He's now seeing how powerful you are because you didn't let the pain turn you bitter. You didn't let his absence ruin you. You chose to rise. You chose peace. And that is where respect begins. At first, he may not be sure how to process it. He expected anger, maybe even hoped for it, because anger means you still care. Anger means he still has a place in your mind, even if it's a messy one. But when all he sees is your calm, your strength, your soft glow that isn't about revenge or validation, but simply the result of real healing, he realizes that the version of you that loved him wasn't the full picture. That was just the beginning. The woman he's seeing now is evolved, refined by pain and patience. You've grown into someone he didn't know he was helping shape by leaving you broken. That transformation wasn't for him, but he can't help but witness it and feel humbled. It's in the way you carry yourself now. You don't need to speak much for it to be felt. It's in your boundaries, in your smile, in your silence. He starts realizing that you aren't bitter toward him, not because he was perfect, but because you made peace with your own story. You let go of needing him to understand you or validate your side or give you closure. And that level of maturity, that grace, that shakes him because it tells him something he didn't want to admit, that he was never in control of your value. He never had the power to define you no matter how things ended. Respect grows when he realizes you didn't retaliate. You didn't try to ruin his name, didn't drag him through your healing. You just focused on yourself. You built your peace from the rubble, piece by piece. That restraint, that discipline, it tells him everything he didn't understand while he was with you. That you were strong in ways he never saw. That your softness wasn't weakness, it was love. That your patience wasn't desperation, it was faith. And that the whole time, you were more powerful than he could handle. He might not tell you directly. He might never say, I respect you now more than I ever did when we were together. But he feels it. It shows up in the way he hesitates before he speaks to you again, in the way he watches what you post, trying to understand the new you. It shows up in the way he speaks about you to others, with reverence, even if he tries to hide it. He might say, she was a good woman, but what he really means is, I wasn't man enough to meet her where she was. Respect also hits him when he sees you winning without needing to announce it. You're not out here screaming about your healing, you're just glowing. You're walking into rooms like you own your peace. You've taken the time to know yourself again, and that self-assurance is magnetic. It's not even about looking good, though you probably do. It's about that energy, that quiet untouchable confidence that can only come from self-respect. And when a man sees that in a woman he once had access to, it hits differently. He knows now that you were always that woman. You just didn't fully show it when you were pouring into him. The biggest part of his respect comes from the realization that you didn't just move on from him, you moved up within yourself. You didn't rebound into chaos. You didn't try to fill the silence with noise. You sat with the pain, you faced it, you learned from it, and you let it teach you. You became better, not bitter. That's a kind of growth he may not be familiar with, because too often people look for external validation after heartbreak, but you didn't. You found it within. That is rare. And rare things are respected even by those who took them for granted. He may not have seen your worth when he had you, but now as he watches you at peace, he sees it more clearly than ever. And that's what brings him to a place of real respect. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it through how you carried yourself after the storm. Not with revenge, not with rage, but with grace. Believe it or not, a man often feels relief when he sees that you've moved on peacefully. It might sound strange because we usually associate relief with the person who's walking away, but for him, it's a different kind of freedom. When a relationship ends, especially one that once meant a lot, there's always some leftover tension, some unsaid words, some unresolved feelings hanging in the air. That tension can weigh heavily on a man, whether he admits it or not. But when he sees you moving on without bitterness, without drama, without trying to drag him back into the past, he feels a release, a breath of fresh air that lets him off the hook. Relief comes because your peaceful exit clears the emotional clutter. He no longer has to tiptoe around you, guessing whether every interaction will blow up into an argument. He doesn't have to worry about angry texts, cold shoulders, or unexpected confrontations. When you move on peacefully, you remove the chaos. And in doing so, you gift him something rare, peace. It's almost like you're telling him, I'm okay, you're okay, we're both okay. And that simple acknowledgement takes a huge weight off his shoulders. In many ways, this relief is a form of closure for him, even if he never consciously asked for it. Closure isn't just a conversation or a final goodbye. It's a state of mind. It's knowing that whatever happened, whatever mistakes were made, there is no longer a battle to fight or wounds to pick at. When you choose peace over pain, you silently close the door on all the what-ifs and could-have-beens. And that silence is something he deeply craves, even if he can't put it into words. He's relieved because your peace makes room for him to heal too. When a woman moves on peacefully, it stops the cycle of blame and hurt that can keep both people stuck. Without the drama, there's no emotional tug of war, no constant back and forth that drains both sides. Instead, there's space to breathe, space to grow, and space to learn from the experience without feeling like the past is still holding you hostage. That space is a gift, not just to you, but to him as well. And when he senses that space, he feels lighter. He feels less burdened by guilt, regret, or anger. Relief also shows up because your peaceful movement forward signals maturity. It tells him that you're not going to spiral into bitterness or resentment, that you're not going to drag the past into your future. He sees that you respect yourself enough to choose happiness over hurt, and that kind of self-respect makes his own shortcomings less crushing. It's like he can finally forgive himself, or at least stop beating himself up so much. Your grace becomes a balm for his wounded pride. In addition, your peaceful transition removes the fear of being haunted by you forever. He's relieved that you're not becoming the ex who lingers in his notifications or the one who tries to sabotage his new relationships. Instead, you're moving on with dignity and class, allowing him to do the same. That mutual release is a relief on both sides, even if it doesn't look like one at first glance. It's an unspoken agreement that says, we had our time. Now it's time to heal separately. What's more, your peaceful departure can restore his faith in relationships and in himself. When a man sees you handling the breakup with grace, it reminds him that love doesn't always have to end in bitterness. It reminds him that endings can be gentle, respectful, and even kind. That's a powerful lesson for him, especially if he's afraid of failing again or hurting someone else in the future. Your example shows him that peace is possible, even after loss. And that relief can be deeply humbling for a man. It takes the pressure off him to be the bad guy or the villain in the story. When you move on peacefully, you don't paint him as a monster or a failure. Instead, you show empathy, understanding, and kindness. That doesn't erase the pain, but it softens it. It allows him to acknowledge his mistakes without being crushed by shame, and that's liberating for him. Sometimes